Hi, I'm Riverboat Ronnie, and welcome to my podcast, The Inner Voyage. This is episode 7, Respect the Police. 6 years ago, we had some protests going on, and one of the police officers that was there every day for the protest, I knew him personally, and he ended up pushing a female protester. And of course, this got recorded by somebody in the crowd, and it was plastered all over the news for months. I believe this even made national news. So he was suspended pending the investigation, and I believe this whole thing took about 2 years by the time the trial was over. And during this time, I was talking with him about the situation. He was getting death threats. He had to move from where him and his wife and his newborn baby lived because of the death threats. And life got really, really hard for him until eventually when it went to court and I guess the police cam footage came out and everybody saw what had happened. She had actually spit in his face and then he pushed her. But, while this was a pending investigation, I don't believe they had released any of the body cam footage. And this was on the news every single night. And I mean, people were hunting him down. And, it was a high tense situation during those times. I know that the police were not supposed to be engaging with anybody. They were just kind of there to keep the peace. And the protests were peaceful, but in the evenings, you had a lot of people that were coming to the protest just to cause problems. They were busting out windows of businesses and, antagonizing the police and, just causing a ruckus. So, the thing of it is, the tensions were high and, the emotions were flaring through this whole time, and everybody was out to get him, and it was just a terrible thing. He's a human being, just like everybody else. He had a wife and a newborn child to go home to at night, and the thing that I'm seeing is all over the news and in social media is people are getting pulled over and they don't want to give the cops their ID anymore, or they're simply arguing with cops all the time, and they're not wanting to comply. These cops, they're human beings just like us. They go home to their families just like we do. They have kids. They're just there to do a job, and their job is to protect and serve. And are there bad cops? Of course there are. There are bad people in every industry around the world. I would say that's very few of them though that are bad. And we're not respecting the police. They have such a dangerous job. They get up in the morning and they don't know if they're going to come home and see their family again that evening. And if everybody would just calm down, things would go smoothly. You get pulled over for speeding or whatever it is, or you get asked for your ID. Simply comply with the police. Things will go smooth. They're not out to get people. They're there to protect the community. So, if we simply just calm down and answer their questions, you'll be on your way very shortly. And the media is only wanting to show us the few instances, the bad cases. There's hundreds of thousands of cops out there, and we see, once in a while you see a cop that's overly aggressive or he's, doing something wrong. But the majority of them, they're just like us, and they're just trying to get home to their families. It's just terrible that we're treating each other this way. I've worked in other countries where you don't see police and you see the military patrolling the streets. And, that's a scary sight to see. We don't want it to get to that point And if things keep escalating the way that they are, that's where we'll end up. If the police can't do their job and they're getting assaulted and the citizens don't even want to give them an ID, eventually National Guard will come in and things are only going to escalate, and nobody wants that. You got to have order in society, and they're literally out there trying to keep bad people off the streets and protect everybody, make sure people are obeying all the laws and the speed limits. So really, cut these guys some slack. They've got a tough enough job without you harassing them, and everybody can go on their merry way shortly. Simply answer their questions. Don't talk back to them. I know if I had their job, I don't know how they do it personally, because if I was getting talked back to like that every day, I would get frustrated and fed up very quickly. So I actually think that the police are doing an amazing job of keeping their composure with the way that they're being taunted and talked to and disrespected. These are officers of the law. You need to respect them, and they will respect you. So, everybody just needs to calm down a little bit, take a deep breath, comply, and you'll be on your way to whatever you were going to do before you got pulled over, before you got stopped by the police. Jesus loves you. Have a good day.